going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, and this is Flix Fix. Yep, got the bug to do it again once I did the Scream 7 trailer reaction that you guys saw a couple of days ago. So we're gonna try and do this a little more often. It's gonna be series that I'm most familiar with, obviously, because it'll give me the most to talk about. But yeah, still throw it down in the comment section down below. What do you want me to talk about? Are there trailers coming out that you want me to talk about? Are there movies that are out right now that you want me to talk about? Or are there old movies you want me to talk about? Because I could do that as well. And it's basically going to be one of those I'll do it as long as somebody's watching type of ideas. This weekend, however, I did go out and I did see Predator Badlands. One of those things where it's like the people that don't get it will say, oh my god, they're doing another one of those. They're doing another one of those. Yeah, they're doing another one of those because the Alien and Predator franchises are both doing pretty fantastic right now. The Predator Killer of Killers animation that came out on Disney Plus was pretty awesome. Prey was received pretty awesome as well. Alien Earth, the series just finished a little while ago, I thought was quite good. And the last Alien, which was Alien Romulus, I thought was really good. So yes, because they're gaining in popularity, and I think they said this is like the best received one since the first one. So yeah, it's worth doing. It's worth them keeping on doing it. There's more to come, obviously, because success breeds sequels. Let's just be real for a second. But Predator Badlands was pretty cool. I liked it. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's some stuff I'm going to nitpick, obviously, because it's me. What I'm going to do, and this is going to be spoiler-laden, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, probably turn it off right about now. But I'm going to run quickly through the actual story, because the actual story is good, but simple. And then we're going to get into some other tie-ins, some other topical type stuff. I thought they did this well. I thought they did this not so well type stuff after the fact. So we'll get the story out of the way, and then we'll get on to some deep digging on some individual topics, because I think that's the way that makes the most sense to talk about this one in particular. So, movie opens up, and before we even are introduced to anybody, we get this opening placard, and it's from the Yautja Codex. The Yautja are, for anybody that doesn't know, and I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, the Yautja is the actual species name of the creatures that we used to just refer to as predators, as like Alien versus Predator. But like an alien could be a lot of things, and a predator could be a lot of things. So in the modern context, we would say the Yautja and the Xenomorphs, and even the Xenomorphs have different types and queens and hierarchies and all that sort of thing. But we're introduced to the main character, which is Dek, who's kind of sparring, kind of like battling, kind of training with his big brother. We find out through a lot of exposition that he's the youngest brother. He's seen as the runt of the litter. He's seen as weak. He hasn't even been initiated into the tribe yet. One of the things that I thought was really cool, and the way that they kept on phrasing this, was he wants to be Dek of the Yautja, because part of being initiated into their culture, their tribe, their people, however you want to say it, is you finally get the cloak. And they just keep calling it the cloak, and it actually took me a second to realize that they're talking about the cloaking device, which made all the predators in all the other movies like invisible, hard to see, and you always had sort of like the warped images around to show where they were for movie purposes. But it was the idea that they were invisible to everybody, and that was their main advantage, was the technology. And when you get the spears and the throwing discs and the shields and the laser and the big photon cannon that's always on every predator's shoulder. But the biggest technological advantage they have is the cloaking mechanism, because if you can't see an enemy, you can't fight an enemy. So they're basically sparring and all this kind of thing, and it's brought up that Dek is the underdog, Dek is the runt, Dek doesn't belong here, he's the black sheep of the family, and all this kind of thing. And his brother's saying, you got to go out and do your first hunt. You got the idea being, you got to go out there and do your first hunt without the cloak, because if you're not a good fighter, regularly, then what kind of fighter are you going to be with the cloak? It immediately made me think of the quote between Tony Stark and Peter Parker in the MCU, when Tony Stark takes back the high-tech Spider-Man suit, and he sort of says, I need it, I'm nothing without it. And Tony Stark's response is obviously, well, if you're nothing without it, then you shouldn't have it, which is more of a positive thing. This is more of a, like, initiation type of idea. So the dad shows up, and the dad's name is I cannot pronounce any of these names. Dek is the main character, the brother is Quay, and the dad is Njorr, Njorr. Tell me how to spell that, please. Because I only saw it in subtitles. That's the fun part of the story. So before the dad gets there, he says, okay, you got to go around the universe and pick a creature, pick a target, pick your prey, so to speak. And they go through all these different things on the little, like, you know, hologram computer desktop type of thing that he's got on his ship, and they finally land on the Callus, which is just this big spiny looking monster. You don't see it what it looks like fully in the hologram, because they're going to reveal it later in the movie. And this is the one thing, this is like the unkillable thing on the Death Planet, and the Death Planet is a planet called Genna, which we're going to get to in a second. But it's called the Death Planet. Everything on that planet is going to kill you, and this is the one thing on the Death Planet that can't be killed. And he makes a point of saying, like, you know, you try to fight like our father, and even our father is scared of this thing and couldn't kill this thing. And he basically, like a main character would, he said, well, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring back the carcass. I'm going to bring back the trophy. I'm going to be Dek of the Yautja, and we're going to go on from there. But the dad shows up, and, you know, daddy's home, or however you want to phrase that, and he's yelling at the big brother, the Quay, the larger of the two, because Dek is the runt. Let's focus as much as we can on the fact that Dek is the runt. And he basically said, you know, the only way you make a herd stronger is by culling the herd. And if you're a wrestling fan, and you are a fan of specifically NXT, and you know the group The Culling, it made me smile a lot, because I'm a big nerd. But basically what he does is he tries to fight the dad over not killing the brother, and then obviously the big brother gets killed. The big brother shoots Dek into the spaceship behind the, you know, the safety glass or whatever, and Dek has to stand behind the glass and watch his brother get killed by his dad, which is going to do horrible, horrible things to your psyche, obviously. So he shoots off to the Genna planet, because the coordinates have already been made and met and all that sort of thing. Detaches from his main ship, lands in this thing that kind of looks like a scooter and kind of looks like those big glass ball things that they had in the first Jurassic World that the kids were driving around in. Kind of looks like that. So the big ship crashes. The little pod crashes with him in it. You do the, you know, the big arm up scene, the same as you saw Predator in the absolute first Predator movie, when you see him checking his little wrist communicator, wrist computer thing, and all the flashy lights that we never know what they mean. But, you know, he's got a couple of different like ball-shaped items that look like they could be explosives or projectiles or whatever. He's got a spear. He's got the big mounted, like I say, the photon cannon on the one corner, and he's in a mask for about 5 seconds. The whole, like, the iconic Predator mask is not on. It's just not. He lands on the planet, and he's looking around the forest, and the forest is all dense and beautiful looking, and he's on this new planet. And the very first thing that happens is he gets chased out by the trees that are alive, and the vines are alive, and they're trying to get him, and he's fighting them, and he fights them off, and it's fine. And it makes me think of the plant creature from the Alien Earth television show. If you haven't watched the Alien Earth television show, it's largely based on Prodigy, the company that is in competition with Weyland-Yutani, going around the planet, or going around to all the planets and collecting up all the interesting creatures and items and monsters and aliens and all that sort of thing. There's the eyeball creature, there's obviously a xenomorph, there's bugs that eat metal and become acidic and all these types of things, and there's also some violent anthropomorphic plant pod vine type creatures. It made me think of that. Don't know if it's supposed to tie in or not, but it is what it is. Runs out of that, gets clear of that, into a field. And into the field, you've got more plant pods, and the idea being that these plant pods have spores, and when the plants get excited, they explode, and the spores go everywhere, and they paralyze people. Now, he's got to go through all that and not get caught by one of these spores, but the creature flying overhead is basically scouting him out while he's trying to avoid all these spores. And then there's a voice. The voice is Thea, who we find out is a synth, a synthetic, a Weyland-Yutani android, so to speak. And sort of guiding him through, but she lets him know in no short order that the creature flying over him is waiting for the spores to do their work and paralyze him before it can swoop down and have a bit of a meal. And she says, if you've got a weapon and you want to help me out here, I can help you through the maze and help you with the creature. Well, he gets paralyzed by one of these spores after throwing her sort of a ninja, like the alien equivalent of a ninja star. She cuts herself free from where she's stuck up in the vines there, and cuts herself free, and the creature comes for him because he's paralyzed, and she takes it out with his throwing star, and she's like happy as can be, da-da-da-da. He picks her up off the ground, realizes that half of her body is gone. She's an android, so the fact that she has no legs is not really a problem. But they become a team. It's almost like this weird buddy cop thing that I'm going to talk more about later on, but she can tell him all the things he needs to know about all the different creatures on the planet, and she can help him find the Callisk as well. So he goes through, he makeshifts a bit of a backpack for himself so that she can ride on his back. It's a throwback and a Easter egg for Star Wars in when C-3PO, or is it R2-D2? C-3PO, the gold one, is all like mashed up and needs to be fixed, and he gets carried around on Chewbacca's back. It's very similar to that, if not a direct Easter egg. So they're going around, and she's sort of teaching him about all the different creatures on the island. There's those plants with the spores, there's these eels that come out of the rocks, and they spit acid, but they won't spit acid if you feed them. Basically, you become their friend, and they don't spit acid at you. They go to follow a larger creature across the grass, but she tells him to look out because the grass is made out of razor blades. Because of course it is. So we've got razor blade grass, we've got snakes that want to spit acid at you, we've got plants that want to shoot darts at you, and we've got these big fucking monsters. So while he's trying to escape the bladed grass, there's another octopus type creature that sort of is big enough to loom over the trees, over the forest, and obviously over them, and they get pursued by it. They don't want to go through the bladed grass. What happens is they get distracted by another little creature that they call Bud. And if you remember the old I think it's Jack Connor Disney movie with the sort of dog-looking thing that had like a face on both sides, or whatever. I can't think of what the name of that is now because I'm a terrible person. Kind of looked like that. It's kind of like this is the alien, but it's made to be adorable, so you're supposed to know that this is the alien. That's a good alien. He's on your side. If it was Jurassic Park, he'd be a plant eater. Don't worry about it. It's fine. They name it Bud, and when the big octopus-looking thing tries to eat all of them, Bud like hardens his shell and his outer exterior to the point where that the creature trying to eat them breaks a tooth, and they all get away. Now, this is where you get into a little bit of the conversation of, Yautja aren't supposed to have friends. Thea convinces him to keep her with him because, I'm not a friend, I'm a piece of machinery. Like, you can just think of me as a tool, which is a very key point in the conversation. And he rejects Bud completely, and she tries to tell him, hey, like, he just saved us from being in that big creature's mouth, and he responds pretty coldly with basically like, well, we're not in that creature's mouth anymore. So he's a bit of a dick. We're supposed to see him as a bit of a dick at this point. They make it back to one of the Weyland-Yutani sites. Over the course of the time before we get to that site, she explains to him that she's actually partnered with another synth, and they're basically twins. They're identical. They're made from the same creator. They're a little bit higher in evolution than all the other synths that are there. She was basically designed to be the person in the lab, and the other one, Tessa, is the one that was out there in the field, but she brought Thea out into the field one time. She lost track of Tessa, and she lost her legs in the process. She wants to hook up with Dek. Dek can help her find her legs and get back to Tessa. In return, Thea's going to help him find the Callisk and tell him how to kill it and all this kind of thing. They come back to the camp that had been destroyed by the Callisk, and you see the big footprints that indicate how big this fucking thing was. They find the legs. They go into an overturned, what looks like a motorhome, what looks like a command center type thing, and magically she hooks herself up into a machine that's going to sew her legs back onto her body. That doesn't happen, and then she turns to him, and basically the first turn happens, where she says, you got to get out of here. I've called them here come and find me and pick me up so that I can be back with Tessa. If they find you, they're gonna take you, because this is Weyland-Yutani, and they're going all over the world, much like Prodigy were in Alien Earth, and they're trying to find the most dangerous creatures on the planet. They're here. This was our task. This was our goal. This was our mission. You have to get out of here. So he's now, you know, big tough guy that never feels anything, kind of sort of made a friend, feels rejected, fucking leaves. And then the Callisk comes. The Callisk comes, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's an elephant dinosaur that's undefeatable, pretty much. And we find out throughout the course of their first fight that the reason you can't kill this thing is because it regenerates in such a way that Wolverine would be jealous. He cuts its head off at one point, and the bits from the head and the bits from the body just grab themselves and pull themselves back in. He cuts it open from the belly, and it doesn't do fuck all. He does a bunch of shit. Nothing happens. They knock into the command center, and Thea loses her legs again. Fantastic. But what does happen is Tessa eventually does show up, and they capture the Callisk. They capture Deck as well, and you know, Thea's all happy because she's gotten into her mind that she could be Tessa's sister, and as an android who's not a human being, she loves this idea that Tessa could be her sister after talking to Deck about how he lost his brother and his dad, and, you know, oh, this is why you're so miserable, because you're mourning, and, you know, the response from Deck is obviously, oh, there's no sense in mourning, there's no sense in grief, it just makes you weak, da-da-da-da-da. But he implants to her that this idea that these two robots, Tessa and Thea, could actually see themselves as sisters. So when Tessa comes back to pick them up, Tessa says, well, no, actually the Yautja is another capture. They capture the Yautja. They capture the Callisk, and she turns on her and says, well, you're not my sister. Like, we're just here for a mission. Like, what the fuck? You're a robot. Pull it together type thing. Gets turned on. The Yautja gets turned on. He sort of fucks off, goes home, and then starts thinking about it again. Starts wandering around the old battle site and whatnot. Finds Bud again. Bud is curled up in the footprint of the Callisk when he realizes that Bud is a baby Callisk, and what that he was hunting was Bud's mom. So it's like, okay, now we got to go back. We got to save Thea from the sister that has betrayed her. We got to get the Callisk back to the mom Callisk, and we're no longer going to hunt the Callisk. We are going to hunt all these other horrible people like Tessa, etc., and that will be my new trophy. So he goes through the woods, and he goes to all the places that Thea had taken him, and he's got his brother's mask because he's been back to the main ship where the trophies are and all that stuff. He's got his brother's mask. He wraps himself in some kind of armor. He goes back to the razor blade grass to make himself some whips and some stabbing weapons out of the razor grass. He bundles up some of the plants with the thorns in them so that he can use them as paralytic agents. Oh, there was bugs as well. Bugs that, when they get attacked, swell up with poison and then literally explode. So he keeps some of them as well, and also grabs one of those eels, the snake things, the ones that spit the acid. If you feed them properly, they won't spit acid at you, and he mounts the eel, the snake thing, on his shoulder like he would with the plasma cannon, because Tessa now has the plasma cannon. So, separately from this, hysterically, because Thea had been trying to reattach her legs, there's a connection. There's a thing on her temple, and there's a thing on the hip of her leg setup. So the legs, independently, are going to go find Thea as well. There's an awesome fight scene where Thea is in a sort of a containment unit, and the legs find her, and she's fighting with her upper half, and the legs are fighting from the lower half, and they kick the crap out of each other, and then she kind of welds herself back together. But now, once again, we have to fight. We have to do all these things. All the droid army, and this is where you kind of get the whole thing of every alien movie, where like the humans are the bad guys. Well, the closest thing we have to humans in this movie is the droids, and the droids we'll talk more about later. But like, there's good ones and bad ones. Thea's a good one. Basically, all the rest of them are bad ones. There's a really cool thing because Thea and Tessa are played by the same actress, where she tries to play Tessa at one point, but doesn't have any of the information that Tessa would have. So then Bud just like eats them, which is fine. What happens now is that Tessa takes the plasma cannon, integrates it with her own operating system, so she's wearing it the way a Predator would, but she's also driving a loader. She's driving a loader like Ellen Ripley did in Alien 2, or Aliens, where she's in the loading bay and she says, "Where the fuck do you want this stuff?" And then later on, when she fought the alien, she's saying, you know, "Get away from her, you bitch," and all that. It's a bigger version of that. So while Dec and Thea and Bud are trying to save the Kalisk and trying to, you know, put things back right, and I shouldn't have been hunting this thing all along, this is a better enemy to fight. Now the Kalisk is fighting Tessa in the loader, and it's a mimic of the Ripley versus the Xenomorph fight, except for the fact that it's the bad guy in the loader and you're rooting for one of the alien creatures. Now, what happens is the Kalisk eats her completely, but they've got this freezing bomb, one of the things that they stole from the Yautja ship. It basically freezes anything it touches. It's how they captured the Kalisk in the first place. They froze it on the outside. They froze the Yautja from the outside as well, but this time it's frozen from the inside out, so it's not quite as hardened on the inside as it is on the outside. The regenerative powers are not the same thing, so she freezes it from the outside and then blows it up to a way that it's not going to reconstruct, it's not going to recreate. So now you've got the group taking on Tessa, when Tessa just gets her head, like, destroyed, pretty much. Gets destroyed by Dec in anger of, you know, "You're coming for my friends, you've just killed my new friends, Mom." It's all very cathartic, it's all very "I've found my new family" type of thing. And then they all go back, because the last thing that he has to do is go get revenge on his dad for killing his brother. They go back to Yautja Prime, calls him an embarrassment because he hasn't, you know, he didn't come in back with the body or the trophy of what he said he was going to kill. He just came back with a little robot head and said, "Here, fuck you, there's my trophy, I want my cloak, I'm one of us." And he says, "I want, you know, the dad laughs at him and is like, "Oh, no, you're not here for your cloak, you're not here to be one of us because you're a loser, you're a runt, you're just back here for revenge and bravado and all that kind of thing." So they fight. The dad uses the cloak. The dad is a dickhead, because the one thing that his runt son doesn't have is the cloak, and the spaceship that used to be Quay's, that has now been adopted by Dec, kicks up the engine, which is really smart because you're throwing debris at the cloaked individual, which makes them visible. It's like if you've seen the movie The Invisible Man, you know, all about how, you know, never mind the technology, all men are terrible, da-da-da-da, but when she poured the paint on the guy's head, at least you could see where he was. It's very much like that, and the fight scene is pretty fucking fantastic, because basically he's fighting a phantom, but you can just see enough of it, and you can believe that he sees just enough of it to get the job done. And then the baby Kalisk, the one that they call Bud, once he's got him pinned to the ground, comes and bites his dad's head off, which is fine. And then you see all the rest of the predators, the Yautja, coming out of the caves, either to see what's happened or to avenge their fallen leader, etc. And then it slams to black and comes back for a second because you hear a spaceship in the distance, and it sort of ends on a pretty nice hook for a sequel, because they're probably going to do a sequel, because Thea, now with legs, which is awesome, it's always good to have legs, looks at the spaceship and says, "Is that a friend of yours?" And he says, "Nope, that's my mom." And then we slam to black again. So, pretty simple. I thought my life would be okay as soon as I got my hands on this, and then when I got it, I realized it really wasn't what I wanted. What I really wanted was revenge and family and somewhere to belong, you know. Let's all queue up Linkin Park together. Let's all listen to Somewhere I Belong. They got nominated for 2 Grammys, and everybody's upset. Story's pretty good. The story is pretty simple. It doesn't ask you to take it too seriously. It doesn't come out here and act like it's the Iliad. He's on a mission. He thought he wanted to kill the Kalisk. What he really wanted to do was kill his dad for killing his brother, and it is what it is. Now, let's talk about the obvious elements. First, obviously there's tie-ins with Alien, even though there's no xenomorph. Even to the point where the Predator spaceship, where they have all the skulls in the trophy room, which even if you've seen Predator 2, there is a xenomorph skeleton skull in that scene, in that movie, as a little bit of an Easter egg. They don't have it there. They have... I think there's like an oversized gorilla head. They have people skulls in there. They've got some kind of rhino-esque creature. The nice Easter egg that they have in there is they have one of the Ravengers from the Independence Day movies with the big flat domes in there. That's all good, but there's no xenomorphs in this story whatsoever. What there is tie-ins to Weyland-Yutani, tie-ins to the synths, tie-ins to the whole... I guess rich people, government, people are bad, humans are bad, like never mind the monsters, it's the people that are the real bad thing, with Tessa and Thea being the representation of that. But the Weyland-Yutani thing crossing over, the idea that Weyland-Yutani, or maybe Prodigy, if you follow the Alien Earth show, might pick up a Yautja at some point, and that might be their next big trophy thing, is kind of cool, but it is just in there, like, begging you. It's wanting you to beg the movie makers to do Alien versus Predator, which apparently they're not going to do until there's absolutely nothing else for them to do, because right now they've got two different streams of revenue, however you want to look at it. The comic book people, the creative people behind it, the people at Fox, the people at 20th Century, the people at Disney, however you want to look at it. They've got two individual streams of creativity, two individual streams of like monetary value. Let's be real for a second. So I think they'll hint at it. I think when they actually do it is when they run out of ideas for either character individually. Now, Deck being the main character, the Predator being the main character. The Predator's not the bad guy. I enjoyed the movie. This is the part that didn't work for me at all. It was behind him by the end, and he was a likable character by the end, but that's kind of antithetical to the whole Predator thing. So the Predator being the good guy didn't really work for me. Apparently, initially, before they wrote this Yautja Prime and Ghana, the Death Planet with the Callus story, originally Predator Badlands was going to be the Predator fighting Nazis. Yay! I'm sure in the current political climate that would have gone over like a lead balloon, but Predator being the main character doesn't work. Predator being a good guy doesn't really work for what I see the Predator to be, and that's a lot of that is my own personal view on things. Like, I want the monster to be the monster. The buddy cop vibe between him and Thea was cool. It was enjoyable while I was watching it. I don't want to see my Predator like being the guy out there making buddies, making friends, basically adopting a baby Yoda in Bud there. But as the main character as well, it doesn't work, because the reason the Predator works is you don't see it right away. It's that whole Jaws premise, like for the majority of Jaws, mostly for budgeting purposes, but again, it became a very cool storytelling trope. You hardly saw it. You saw, with the Predator, you saw a little bit of green blood on a leaf in the jungle. You saw a blaster blast that seemed to come out of nowhere. You saw a little ripple in your vision because it was still cloaked or whatever, and then you didn't see it until the final fight. What you had was everybody else talking about it. Everybody else, oh my god, what is that? Everybody else, how are we going to kill this thing? Oh my god, this thing's not killable. This thing's a monster. Da-da-da. You had everybody talking about it. You didn't have it out there being itself. So, while I think it's an awesome concept, and I really, really do, trying to see it from his perspective so that you can see the Yautja life and the Yautja origins and the Yautja like cultural stuff and the building the armies and joining the clans and all that kind of stuff. I didn't like Deck, even though I liked the character Deck in the movie as I was enjoying it, as I was watching it. I hope that makes sense. Every Alien movie, and this is why I think the tie-in to Alien is really important, because the tie-in to Alien brought in Weyland-Yutani. Weyland-Yutani brought in the Thea and Tessa characters, and they doubled down on that by having no human characters whatsoever. It's a continuation of every single Alien movie, because every single Alien movie has always had some kind of AI, from the hive mind mother AI that tells them all what to do ever since Alien 1, to the droids, to Ash, to Bishop, to Call, to David, who eventually becomes the next generation as Walter, going back to Alien Earth with all the AIs, with all the synths, with Wendy and the Lost Boys, and now Thea and Tessa. It's always pushing the boundaries of the how good is AI, how bad is AI good or bad, are droids good or bad, can they be heroes or villains if they're not even alive. It's always a question of, oh my god, what is life? All this type of thing. Like, do we need to worry about hurting a robot's feelings? All that kind of thing. It was tackled in a pretty cool way here, in the sense that Deck had to see Thea as a tool and not as a person, because in the Predator belief system and in their code of honor or whatever, you're supposed to hunt alone, and B, they don't make any friends. So the only way they worked as a team is if he saw her as a tool, even though the entire buddy cop vibe they had throughout the movie went entirely against that. Now, the other thing that they did with her, and she explained it very easily, was she was able to talk to it, and she explained right at the beginning of the movie that she has a universal voice translator, so when she speaks, a Yautja will hear her speaking in Yautja. And then she even says, well, if somebody was around here speaking English, they would hear me speaking in English, which is not a call out to anybody, because there's no other human beings on the planet. That's a call out to the audience that allowed her to speak English for the whole movie without it posing the typical question of, why is this character on another planet suddenly speaking English? Because between that and the subtitles, you could see these two having conversations. But what I didn't want was any way, shape, or form where this Yautja creature from another planet is suddenly speaking English. So they got around that in a really cool way. They had her be almost the narrator in her own story, which was a really nice touch. And there was a fourth wall break, wink and a nudge. Hey, this is how we're going to talk to you, the audience, which I thought was really cool. It also dove into the whole, hey, do AIs have feelings? Because she was really excited about the idea that, Tessa could be her sister, even though they were both just droids. And then the reveal later on in the movie where they were programmed to have emotions so that they could have sympathy and empathy for the creatures that they were trying to ultimately collect. So they were given emotions as a motivational and a manipulative tool, and they ended up just being emotions that, hey, these are feelings that a human being might have. So that's another element that they brought over from the Alien movies without having a xenomorph in the movie, was the entire complex moral conversation about where does AI fit in our lives and all that kind of thing. And especially these days, everybody wants to vilify AI. I'm not going to wave a flag for AI, but I really, really, really don't think that it's Skynet either. Now, I heard an interesting theory. For those of you that don't know, I watch a YouTube channel called Emergency Awesome, and they were talking about this movie, and, sort of the idea, again, that AI can't be good or bad because it's just a machine, it's just a program, etc. All of them, at least from the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, answer to the AI called Mother, which is supposed to be the communication between them and whoever's giving them their direct instruction. Now, if Mother is the one itself that's running Weyland-Yutani and it's no longer a person, which you wouldn't have any way of knowing if you were out there so far deep in space that you're on Genna and Yautja Prime and all these types of things, if the AI Mother itself pulls a Skynet and turns on its human inhabitants, human creators, etc., you could have a whole other really interesting story with that, where even though it's within the Alien and Predator universe, do the aliens, the Predators, and the humans all of a sudden team up somehow against the synths, against the droids? I think there's an insanely awesome story that they could tell there. Don't know how well it would work. Would it be like a 3-movie arc? Would you have to bring in everything from everywhere? Would you have to have like almost your Avengers Assemble moment? I really don't know, but there's all kinds of really cool things to pick out of the AI, the synth, the droid, the cyborg conversation that comes from those Alien movies, and I think they did pretty exceptionally well with it in this particular movie. And because she's the droid, the synth, the android, the robot, however you want to refer to her, the way they tucked in that language explainer that literally did, like, she did everything but look right into the camera and wink at the audience. And I thought that was so clever, because you're not going to have a person and a Yautja speaking in English to each other, and you're also going to have people not as inclined to check out the movie if the whole thing is subtitles. I'm one of them. This worked out pretty well because it was a nice balance, and as I say, she was holding up her end of the conversation, and because she's the only one talking until they encounter the rest of Weyland-Yutani, she kind of does become the de facto narrator of the movie, even though she's not the main character. Now, gotta talk about this, and I gotta be careful how I talk about it because my opinions on this are not popular. The other theme of this movie is toxic masculinity, and if you watch this movie and you don't think they're battering you in the skull with the whole theme of toxic masculinity, I don't know what to tell you. It's like telling me to watch a Jordan Peele movie and telling me Jordan Peele doesn't hate me. It's just so blunt, and it was done. The thing about this, and why I make the Jordan Peele comparison, Jordan Peele hates me. That's what Jordan Peele tells me in every bit of writing that he's done for every movie that he's done. If Jordan Peele met me in real life, he would throw me off a cliff. That's what he's telling me in his movies. And if you don't believe me, go watch any Jordan Peele movie. This was a big thing of a big sort of metaphor for toxic masculinity, because sci-fi always has inbuilt messages in it and whatnot. Now, there's not a single human being in this movie, which kind of makes it unique and kind of makes it hard to analyze at the same time. But until the end, until Deck's mom shows up, this big group of this species, the Yautja, we're introduced to, it's all dudes. All these guys that are putting out these ideas don't have any friends, don't make any alliances, kill everything, make sure everything is afraid of you, don't be afraid of anything, like, go out there, kill. The way you become one of us is you kill somebody. The way we respect you is if you kill something. You don't get to have all your cool shiny weapons until you kill something. It's all the stuff that exists in that vague description of toxic masculinity. And even when Deck is on the planet and talking to Thea, who is very, very pronounced female character, and even the sister that she seeks to reunite with is very, very pronounced female, she's telling him, you're mourning, you should mourn, you should feel things, you should have some sympathy for this other little guy that we've found along the way, and he's like, no, he's weak, he's going to ruin our tribe and all this sort of thing. She's trying to, like, weed the toxic masculinity out of him, and she's going to make him feel something and everything. At the end of the day, everything he does is based on feel and all this kind of thing. And even when he goes back at the end, like, he's come back to Yautja Prime as the more enlightened modern male of the Yautja species, which isn't a thing. I mean, and then they flush it down the toilet when they reveal that the real threat is his mom. But it's hard for me as somebody that's coming up here to talk about a movie and talk about, like, movie tropes and movie structures and storytelling devices. Toxic masculinity, the idea of toxic masculinity, the idea that being male is toxic in real life is 110% grade A 24 karat bullshit. Let me be clear. As a storytelling device, as a moral narrative device for a movie, it was fantastic. And as I say, you shouldn't be able to relate to anybody in this movie because one's an alien with a couple extra claws on his face and one's a robot that lost her legs before we met her. So they've played it off really well. They've played off that dynamic really well. It's really, really fantastic. And it would be really, really fantastic if it wasn't there to push out into the world this idea, this fantasy that some people think is real. Here, on Earth as I'm talking into a microphone and you guys are listening to me on Rumble, which I'm pretty sure isn't available in space. Again, 100% grade A 24 karat gold bullshit. Out there on Ghana, on the Death Planet, while we're hunting a Kalisk and dealing with the betrayal of our father and the death of our brother, etc., etc., etc. Tremendous storytelling device, told tremendously well. So way to Jordan Peele the movie a little bit. So, don't know how I feel about that. Don't know how I feel about Deck being a main character. Loved how they tackled the entire idea of AI in this movie. I think it was fantastic. The last thing I want to say, and it's kind of a minor thing, the movie is gorgeous. The soundscape is pretty cool for the most part. The way they made the Death Planet, they did that sort of like the morals of nature thing, where like the most beautiful animals are also the most deadly. When he lands on there, it's a lush green jungle, and it's got all these different areas of water and mountain and lush forests and all these types of things. And the way all the creatures sort of integrate with the planet itself, it's like the planet itself is a character. Like, they refer to it as the Death Planet. They're not saying, hey, the things on this planet are going to kill you. They're saying, no, you go to that planet's going to kill you. It's kind of like a really weird comparison, but it's kind of like when they talk about Skull Island before they actually talk about Skull Island. What did John Goodman say? The place on Earth where evolution never came, or whatever, however he phrases it. It's kind of got that vibe to it, where the planet itself has a personality. Never mind what's happening on it. The planet doesn't care that Weyland-Yutani has landed there and they're trying to hunt a Kalisk and the robots are having disagreements with each other. The planet itself is going to kill you. You know, those vines are gonna come and strangle you and whatever, but they're coming right out of the trees, which are coming right out of the ground. Those snakes that are spitting acid at you are basically like coming and going through the cracks in the rocks in the bedrock of the planet. The whole planet is gorgeous. The whole way it's done is gorgeous. The character design, for the most part, is pretty damn cool. How they told the whole story of, hey, here's a guy that came to this planet with all, I say the guy, the Predator, who came with all this planet and all this technology and whatever, when all he really needed was a snake on his shoulder and his brother's mask and a couple of, exploding bugs. Which, the exploding bugs thing killed me, I'm not gonna lie. But it's such an interesting thing as well for them to be, him and his brother to be sitting there on Yautja Prime, which when they pan out and they show what Yautja Prime actually looks like, it's a desolate wasteland where it doesn't look like there's a single living thing. And then he goes to the supposed Death Planet, and it's the most gorgeous place there is, as long as you're not actually down there getting killed by tree people. The two planets were done in a really distinct way. The design of the Predator itself, the only thing I will say that made it interesting, they were way too similar in the beginning, when it's Deck and Yor and Quay, and they're all sort of having their little family feud at the beginning. They all look a bit similar, they all look a bit samey. So the what do you want to say, like the jousting fights that were happening between him and his brother at the beginning were a little hard to follow, but it was like a minute of the movie, so I'm not going to take any points off that. The way the dad came out and he was all like done up in all his like finery with like cloaks and bigger like antlers and skulls and all the stuff that's supposed to make you believe that he's like the elder, the highest warrior in the tribe. All of it fantastic. The design, the robot design was cool. The way they played around with how a cyborg would act if it was cut in two pieces and could still like cooperatively work with its own body and all that type of thing. The way they told the story, the way they built two worlds. Apparently this is farther into the future of the Predator timeline than any other Predator movie out there, so it's really like whatever you already know is gone already. Whatever you already know happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago. This is what this is what the world looks like now. This is what the universe looks like now. The only reference to Earth that I can think of, other than the fact that just in general Weyland-Yutani wanted to bring things back to Earth, when Thea was trying to describe to Dec, you know, not every animal hunts alone. There's, on Earth we have this animal called the wolf, and they hunt in packs, and each pack has an alpha, and she had to describe to him in the sense that, you know, the alpha doesn't necessarily have to be the one that kills them out. The alpha is the one that most effectively protects the pack, and he becomes and he even says the word, it's the only word he kind of says in English, but he adopts sort of the identity of the wolf, like, before we end off the movie, and even that's cool, because it's the only string of anything that came from Earth, which made it stick out like a sore thumb in the best way possible. This movie's gorgeous. Toxic masculinity is bullshit, but they handled it fictionally in a very, very cool way. The conversations around AI in this movie are fantastic. I'm going to say it once again, the Predator itself being the main character, the main good guy, didn't quite work for me, but it didn't mean I didn't enjoy it at the time. There was loads to tie it to other movies. There was loads to tie it to the alien side of things, which makes you look forward to the future, etc. And just not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Lots I could nitpick, and I have. Overall, tremendous recommendation if you like the Alien and Predator movies. Specifically, if you liked Alien Romulus, Killer of Killers, and Alien Earth, then go see this movie. Really good. There's going to be stuff you disagree with, because there's going to be stuff that people disagree with me on what I've said here today, especially on certain themes. But I had a lot of fun with this. I'm going to watch it again. It's going to end up on my shelf because that's just how things go. Now, I want to put it out to you guys. They've already passed. Do you want to hear me talk about Killer of Killers? Do you want to hear me talk about Romulus? Do you want to hear me talk about the Alien Earth TV series? If you go back far enough in the feed of this podcast / YouTube or Rumble or whatever, you will see myself and Kristen, Black Cat Feline, talking about Alien and Aliens. Now, we did do a review of Alien 3 that got lost to the recording gods and never made it to podcast, where, yes, I have to admit, I did compare Alien 3 to Shawshank Redemption. I have to say it every time. But there is conversations out there of us talking about Alien 1 and Aliens. Anything in this genre specifically, other than the comics. I haven't read the comics, but I've seen everything else that it has to offer. Also, there's a short film on YouTube. It's only about 3 minutes long, and it's called Predator Fire and Ash, I think. And it's just it's a really cool battle scene with a Yautja and the creators. If you remember the creators from Prometheus, the guys that look like the big blown up blue marshmallow men. It's a really cool fight thing that I found after I saw the movie, and it's worth taking a look at. It's free. It's on YouTube. It's like 3 minutes long. It's not going to take anything away from your life. Go see this movie. If you're into this kind of shit, which, I mean, I think you are if you're listening to me for this long, but if you're into this kind of shit, the alien stuff, the Predator stuff, the sci-fi stuff in general, go check it out. You're going to have a good time, and the things that bug me probably won't even bug you. That's all I've got to say. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to leave it there. I've been Spaz. This has been Flix Fix. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all of these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to you every last one of you later, but for right now, I am out of here. Bye, guys.